Jake Stuart here with the National Sports Media, and today I am joined by four-time Tennessee Sportswriter of the Year, Teresa Walker. Teresa, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, Jake.
Let's get started with a few questions and allow people to learn a little bit more about you and your background. So my first question is, what was your path to your current job?
Well, it was a little different because growing up as a kid in the 70s, going to college in the 80s, I didn't know that about the other women that were out, that being a sports writer as a woman, didn't realize that it was a possibility for me. My first job, I covered, I worked at a newspaper and I covered the police, courts, school boards, those kind of things. I covered one high school football game and I did one sports feature. Then I joined the Associated Press. And for 2.5 years, I was writing college football and basketball games, talking to sports information directors over the phone. And, that was the path that kind of turned for me. And then in June of 1992, I got the opportunity to be the state sports editor for Tennessee for the Associated Press. And so I've been with the Associated Press now for 31 years plus and counting, and all in the state of Tennessee, all in Nashville. And I've been very lucky. I've had 3 pro franchises, Nashville got an NHL franchise as an expansion team. The Grizzlies moved from Vancouver to Memphis, and the then Houston Oilers moved to Nashville in 1997 and became the Tennessee Oilers, then the Tennessee Titans. So, and now the teams just keep coming. So now I'm busier than ever.
That's awesome. And I'm aware too, as you just mentioned, you cover the Predators, the Grizzlies, the Titans, as well as some basketball, some college basketball, some college football. What would you say is the greatest event you've been able to cover?
Ooh, I'm lucky. I've got a nice top 10 with another 10 after that. And my top 5 is having a personal interview with the door closed with Pat Summitt after her team, after she won her 3rd straight title in the late 90s, at a team that went 38-0 and a national title game that was kind of resembled some Lakers Showtime era play. They were so dominant in that first half. But right now, recency bias, I'm going to go with the 2018 women's hockey gold medal game. That game, U.S. had not won the gold medal in 20 years. It not only went to overtime, it went to a shootout. It went to the 6th round of the shootout before Jocelyn Lamoureux Davidson, did a triple deke with her little oops kind of move. And then Maddie Rooney makes the save for the goal. That was absolutely amazing. And I was the person who wrote that game story for AP. And that was a fun night. That said, I've been to 5 Olympics. I've helped cover 5 Super Bowls. 2017 Stanley Cup was pretty amazing. The Predators run through that, covering them winning the Western Conference Final after being the last team into the playoffs. So that's the fun thing is, and the good thing is every year there's something else. This last season, Derrick Henry, the 8th man to run for 2,000 yards, knew he was going to be the back-to-back rushing champ for the first time since LaDainian Tomlinson in 06-07. The chance that, knew he could maybe get to 2000, but boy, that was a fun one to watch him get that, because it wasn't a thing. In 2009, when Chris Johnson was the first for the Tennessee Titans to run for 2000, that was a thing. They were that was a goal. They really, really, really wanted that one. This time it kind of came out of nowhere. So that's the beauty of sports. Something new is happening that keeps us tuned in.
Exactly. These moments you're talking about are truly incredible. And I'm jealous myself that you've been surrounded and been able to be fortunate enough to be around these players and around these moments. And kind of the one that stood out to me was the 2018 hockey championship that you mentioned with the U.S. women's team winning, because I remember it just being electric. And I think that moment specifically in that game, I think brought a lot of females into the sport specifically. And I think it did cause a whole movement itself. So that's awesome that you're able to be a part of that and be able to write the story. That's fantastic, and tell that. And be able to have that today as a memory. So my next question for you, Teresa, is who was your favorite sports writer growing up, or what was your source of inspiration?
Well, in the 70s, I watched NFL football on Sundays with my mom. In the 70s, it kind of seems crazy to think of it today. There's like 1, maybe 2 college football games on Saturday, but on Sunday, you had football. All, from 1 o'clock Eastern time through the entire afternoon, you had, 6 hours of football. So I would watch football with my mom And just, I watched football with her. I watched baseball, Chicago Cubs growing up. I spent the first 5 years in Chicago as a kid, or actually through 5th grade. And so I was kind of able to watch the Cubs, and that was my first love. But always was watching sports, always playing sports with the guys in the neighborhood. But yes, my mom, she was the person I sat and watched. We would debate. She was a Terry Bradshaw fan. I preferred Dan Pastorini and Earl Campbell. So she's the biggest reason why I am a sports writer today.
That's awesome. That's truly inspiring. And my next question for you is, how did the pandemic really change your work and in writing in general?
It's been such a challenge. It's like we're kind of like ducks. You don't see, it looks like we've been swimming just fine over the last 14, 15 months with Zoom call world, but it's been a challenge. We get, covering the Tennessee Titans, they've done a great job at making sure that we've been getting a nice variety of players, including the stars that we all want to talk to help us tell the stories that we are. But, between the connection issues and, spotty Wi-Fi, and it's just been, limited time. And, I'd much prefer to be in the locker room to have conversations face to face rather than, because when players are talking to us, they can't see our faces. We're asked to turn off the video. And so, there's a voice coming at them. Maybe you've met this reporter, maybe you haven't. So it's made it very, very challenging. And then, then going to stadiums where you weren't seeing anyone, and it felt like we were being, the games were being held in a vacuum, to the, fans slowly coming back. At the SEC tournament in March, there were fans, but it was a limited number. And then I'm covering the playoffs, and, the Predators started bringing fans back. And they had it felt like a full building there in the last game 6 against Carolina. And then, the Grizzlies followed the same path, but at a slower pace because they were governed by a different health department. And I had people asking me, well, wait a minute, how many fans are allowed? And, and doing that while covering games, wearing masks. And it's been a challenge, but, that's the thing. I'm very proud of our profession. We've all found a way to adapt and keep telling stories. But again, cannot wait to get back to the face-to-face personal interaction, because that allows all of us as journalists to tell better stories and to tell the athlete stories in a better way and help connect them to fans. Social media is great, but we know what we're doing.
I agree. I think you talked about the challenge, but also the adaptability that a lot of people within the sports industry have had to overcome with some of these challenges, not being able to get those interviews in the back room, not being able to watch in person sometimes even. So, I guess it truly allows you to appreciate the times you do get to have, at these events and being able to cover these teams. And, you talked about the Predators game 6 against the Hurricanes. I vividly remember that too. And the arena pack, that was kind of one of the first signs for me that, we're kind of getting past this whole pandemic and in a big way, at least in the sports world. And so that was awesome to see. My next question for you is kind of going a different route. So I know the sports industry in general, especially for a sports writer, it's a tough path, and it's one, with a lot of competition. What advice would you give for a young sports writer, someone like myself?
Well, my biggest tip is this: whenever you get a chance to do something for someone, whether it's cover a high school game or, a high school tournament, no matter the level, treat it as if you are going to a Super Bowl. When you cover a big event, Super Bowl, Stanley Cup finals, things like that, in a way, it's kind of easier because, there's transcripts and things like that, or there's links, for interviews that you missed. But when you're at a high school event, you're doing it all. But treat it like you're covering that big event. Then you'll earn your bosses, your editor, your assignment editor, their trust that when they tell you, I need you to go do this, they know that they can give you more responsibility. So that's how call it paying your dues, whatever, but treat every event as the most crucial event, because guess what? It is. That athlete that you're covering, no matter the level that they're playing, that's their moment. And, do your best to tell the best story, and that will shine out. Your work will shine through and help you, it'll bring attention to yourself simply by keeping your head down, doing the job, doing it to the best of your ability.
I love that. I think, especially like you said, doing the work right now, and I'm sure it'll pay off in the long run, as you mentioned. So this is my last question. This one's a little bit more of a fun one and a personal one for you. You add Julio Jones to the Tennessee Titans team. What do you see as the outlook of the team now with him and Henry? And just a lot of stars on that team now. What do you foresee?
Well, it's interesting to see the odds. Now they're suddenly co-favorites to win the division that they won last year with the Colts. Their Super Bowl odds got cut to, I think it's 25-1 now. But it's a move that they absolutely needed to make to keep pace in the AFC. You look what the Bills did last year. They made the trade for Stephon Diggs. They go to the AFC Championship game. So, it's all about keeping pace with the Chiefs and putting themselves in position. So this was a new move they had to make to keep themselves in position to compete to get to the Super Bowl, because they lost Jonnu Smith to the Patriots, they lost Corey Davis to the Jets, but you bring in Julio Jones. AJ Brown is just he'd been lobbying for him all over social media. He brings size, he brings experience. His first day on the field last Thursday for an OTA, he's giving little tips to the younger receivers on this team. So it's going to be interesting. He said it plainly. You're going to have to pick your poison now as a defense. Are you going to defend me, AJ Brown? If you do that, then there's Derrick Henry. If you load up the box for Derrick Henry, then we're going to have a chance to feast. And it should be fun. This offense was, they were tied for second in yards, fourth in scoring. They certainly made sure that they shouldn't miss much of a beat, if any. They may be actually a little bit better.
A whole lot of talent, a young team. It's still plenty of time and a big window open for them. I'm excited to see where they go, and I'm sure that'll be fun to cover and fun to write about. Once again, Teresa Walker, 4-time Tennessee National Sports Media State winner. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so very much, Jake.
Thank you.